Hey guys, it's Darren, your youth ministry drill sergeant, and I'm actually having a conversation today with my good friend Danette Maddie, and we're talking all things volunteers. So today we're going to actually shoot for how to help your volunteers aim higher. Now, Danette, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, where you work, where you're from, and all that.
Awesome. Well, I've been a youth ministry volunteer for about 25 years, unpaid and by choice. With 2 kids at home, I wanted to keep the best of both worlds intact, but I began freelance writing and speaking for a group and Simply Youth Ministry about a dozen years ago, and have really enjoyed that. And then last year, 2010, I crash landed into full-time ministry where I've gone to the dark side. I'm now getting paid, but ironically, not in youth ministry. I lead the Connect Group ministry here and a little startup operation called Christ Place Leadership College, which is a leadership development program for emerging adults. So I love my job. But here's the deal, I still love teenagers, and so after about a year being here on staff, I just couldn't stand it anymore, and I started volunteering for our youth group. Specifically, we launched a junior high group.
Awesome.
We had so many kids. So I am once again a youth ministry volunteer.
Yeah, you never can leave it, can you?
No. It never gets old, even when I do.
Well, you're able to really hit this topic from both sides of the of the target, which I love. So we're going to talk a little bit about why do you think we should set some elevated expectations for our volunteers? What's the purpose in that?
Yeah, well, you know what, Darren, let me go a little philosophical on you. I had a good friend who we were both came to know the Lord about the same time, only I remained a volunteer and he went on to be a youth pastor. And at one time, he was my youth pastor. And when he first came, he sat me down. We started talking strategy. But he said these words to me, Darren. He said, "Danette, something you need to know about my leadership, and that is that I'm a varsity coach. I'm not a junior varsity coach. So I'm going to be going after varsity kids and varsity leaders, volunteers." And you know what, Darren, at the time and for a couple of years after, I thought that was the most arrogant thing I had ever heard.
Right.
I thought, come on, everybody's got potential and everybody is loved and everybody, that wants to serve, thank God for them, they're valuable.
Right.
But the longer I served and the longer I led, and then particularly when I became the interim youth pastor, still unpaid, but nonetheless the book stopper at my last church, I understood more and more what this guy was saying. And I have come to take on that philosophy. And here's where it has led me. I'm a big believer in having a core team and what I call a help team. Now, some youth leaders might call it something different, but basically it's that shepherd versus hired hand mentality where you've got leaders who, all leaders that are volunteers, God bless them, but every youth pastor out there knows that not all leaders are created equal, and every person has equal value, but not all leaders have equal capacity.
Right.
And you need high capacity leaders on your team. And the ones that are not high capacity, it doesn't mean they're not valuable, it doesn't mean they're not loved, but
you just got to find the right spot for them.
Well, right, you've got to find the right spot for them, and you still love them and appreciate them, but they're not part of your strategic core team.
Yes. So how do you, when you're enlisting high capacity leaders and you're talking about really taking on the moniker of shepherd more than chaperone, how do you personally set the standard so that the people that you're enlisting understand what's expected of them?
Well, one of the things I do is right up front, I think it's super important. Now, I have been guilty of having volunteers fill out an application. And I feel like I have a great application process, ask all the right questions, but what I've been guilty of in the past and what I think some youth leaders are guilty of is they haven't fill out the volunteer application. So they kind of get to know them a little bit, how you came to know the Lord, what are your strengths, weaknesses, what's your volunteer experience, That's all well and fine. Then we file it away and we never look at it again.
Right.
So then we go on and put leaders, we have them plug holes and fill spots. So to answer your question, one thing I do is, and in fact I just did this with my Young Adult Ministry team, is I said, here's the deal. here are my expectations for you. And I listed them off, and I gave them the whole varsity coach speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, now, here are my expectations. If I'm expecting this from you, here's what you can expect from me. When you come to meetings, I'm going to give you something we're showing up for. Besides food, I'm going to have some leadership development. We're not going to waste time. I'm not going to waste your time because my time's valuable, as is yours. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I want to respect them and elevate them in such a way that tells them this is worth showing up for.
Right.
Because I've said it before, Darren, leaders want to be led well. I heard somebody say that in a workshop years and years ago, and it just hooked my gut, that people want to be led well.
Right.
They don't want to just be led, they want to be led well. And they will be dog loyal to the Lord and to your ministry program, not just to you personally, if they feel like you're going somewhere and that you're not taking them for granted. So I try to be very clear in my communication. Here are my expectations, and I list them off. Mm-hmm. Here are the kind of leaders I'm looking for, and I describe those in clear terms. Now, here's what you can expect from me. And I think that's where youth leaders drop the ball. They don't say,
yes,
here's what you expect from me.
And I love that, because truly leaders will rise to your expectation,
yes,
but not if they don't see you living that out as well. And so for you to say to them, here's what I expect, and now here's what I'm going to offer as well. I mean, what a great mutual
right
respect going on there.
Yeah, right on.
So one last question, Danette. How do you address it then when you have a leader who you've been listed as a varsity leader, as a kind of an upper level leader, and they miss the mark? What do you do?
Well, I actually had that situation at my last church where I actually inherited a small crop of youth leaders from the previous youth pastor, mm-hmm. and looking back, I suppose, I could have come in and said, okay, we're going to start from scratch and go through the interview process all over again. But we were all volunteers. So
sure.
I didn't feel like I could do that or should do that. I did tighten up the ship and list expectations, but this young man, he was not very communicative. He was not very humble. He didn't do anything immoral, but he did make some choices in his leadership of students that was questionable. Mm-hmm. So I addressed him head on. This is kind of funny. In this situation, it was a guy who one of my other volunteers had said to me. She'd said, Danette, you just need to know. We'll call him Sam. That wasn't his name, but she said, I've been in I think it was the college, either the cafeteria or the day room. She goes, and I'm hearing Sam say things that are pretty anti-woman in ministry. And they're also, he's bragging about his hometown being the headquarters for the KKK. So, Darren, I'm like, okay,
double whammy.
I'm a woman and I'm half black. Houston, we have a problem.
Right.
So I called him with grace and humility in my voice. I said, hey, Sam, we need to talk. Here's what I've heard, and I need to hear straight from you if this is true, if we're going to have an issue. And he said, oh, no, we're not. And to make a long story short, we didn't have an issue over those things, at least not overtly, but it was his leadership, his poor leadership on his part. Mm-hmm. So I addressed him face to face, directly, whenever I saw issues come up, and I was real gracious with him. In fact, our second meeting with me in charge, I washed this guy's feet and prayed over him. So then fast forward months and months later, after he's made some really bad choices and left a bad taste in parents' mouth, when it came right down to it, Darren, I went to him and I said, here's the deal. And I said, here's the situation, as you know. Now, here's what's got to happen if we're going to work well together, and I want to work well together, Sam, is you have to be more communicative, mm-hmm. humble, and accountable with me and with a male leader. Mm-hmm. Communicative, humble, and accountable. And the next week, this guy goes, I don't feel led to be in youth ministry anymore. I feel like God's leading me on. I feel like the Lord's leading me out of youth ministry.
Yeah, I bet it was the Lord.
Okay. So that was one example of how I addressed someone who was one of my top dog leaders, and
Yeah.
not. But you know what, Darren, I will say this, and particularly as a female leader, trying to work well with young men, I was so glad that I could look back and that the Lord had led me to wash this guy's feet, and that my other leaders saw that I handled it as graciously, not perfect. I mean, there are things I'd go over, but as graciously and Christ-like as I could before, challenging him in his role in our youth ministry.
As the drill sergeant, I definitely value straight talk. So
Yeah,
I love that you're shooting straight, but I also love that you're leading as a servant. I mean, what a great picture.
Yeah.
Well, Danette, if you had one thing, speaking from a volunteer's perspective, that you would want paid youth leaders to know, as a volunteer, what would it be?
Yeah, oh, that's so good. As a volunteer, in fact, I just had this conversation with a veteran youth pastor not long ago, and I said, speaking of straight talk, I said, listen, and we'll call him Sam too.
It's a different Sam.
Just a good, easy name.
Right.
And I said, Sam, you've got a few dork boys on your team. They're nice guys, but they're not really contributing.
Mm-hmm.
And his response was, well, I feel like when I recruited them, they went through the process just like anybody else. They wanted to serve, and I just feel like if they're not hurting me, they're not helping me. And I said, you know what, Sam? I said I would disagree. I said because what happens is when you have tier 1 leaders, you've got high capacity leaders here. When you allow, and when I say dork, I don't mean nerd. I've worked with nerdy people who are just kid magnets. They're incredible youth leaders. But when I say dork, I'm saying people who really don't get leadership, and they just want to be near you. They want to be on a team. They don't have anything else to do. But it's not that they love teenagers, and it's not that they want to grow or anything or be developed as a leader. They just want to be in the party.
Right.
And that's okay. Those are your help team. And this is what I said to Sam. I said, you lower the bar for all your other leaders when you allow subpar leaders to be in the same strategic meetings or leadership developments. So it's not that you don't love them. It's not that you kick them off or fire them. But there's where, Darren, I say, and I would say this to any paid youth leader, is it's not that you want to treat your high-capacity leaders like divas. But we are volunteer. We are unpaid. And here I am again in a position for years of having worked part-time. Now I'm working full-time and volunteering, which I'm okay with. I feel like it's going to make me a better youth leader and appreciate other youth leaders. But I would say to youth pastors, give me something worth showing up for. Give me a specific role. Let me shine in my leadership gifts and raise the bar so that I feel like, man, I am on a God-honoring team. We're going somewhere. We are burning it up for Jesus.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And those subpar volunteers, you love on them, you give them a role, but allow them to help. But with strategic planning, I just encourage pastors to keep that separate. Not in an elite way. I hope that.
Right. No, totally.
Right.
I mean, because here's the deal, and listen, folks, you need to hear this. Sanctioned mediocrity demoralizes the team. And so if you have people on your team that are, farting around and not getting serious about the youth ministry work they ought to be getting serious about,
it stinks.
Yes, put them in a place where they can, fart and enjoy it. And put the people who are ready to get up and lead in a place where they can lead.
Yes.
Yeah. Danette, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know that the Youth Ministry Nation appreciates your time too, and
awesome.
all that you bring to the table for youth ministry and for leaders. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's mutual. The thankfulness is mutual, Darren.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Love ya.
Okay.
See you, Youth Ministry Nation. Be good.